Welcome to the Bird's Eye View. During this series, we will be diving into entertainment to try to understand its message. My focus is to figure out what the show, movie, etc. is truly trying to say, how well it accomplishes this, what we can learn from it, and how it might be improved. This series is not a political critique or cultural commentary, nor is it a nitpick or comprehensive review. While I may sometimes touch on these areas, it will be in service of understanding, evaluating, and improving the message. So let's look into it. In this video essay, we're going to be looking into She-Hulk. Now, this has been quite a controversial outing for Marvel in this case on the small screen. However, despite all of the debates back and forth, not many people have discussed what is the show actually about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What is She-Hulk really trying to say? What is the point of She-Hulk? First, we'll take a look at the themes, then we'll take a look at the struggles and the conflicts that are central to the core plot, and then we'll go to the moral or the outcome, the message that it gets to at the end. Over and over again, this show emphasizes the themes of being another, on the outside, of duality, being objectified as one who is perceived. Jennifer is both a lawyer on the inside in that kind of group, and a woman also on the outside in this boys' world, in this men's world. Then, due to her accident, she becomes a Hulk. But the twist in her case is that she remains reasonable and in control, while still having all the constant temptation of her Hulk rage.
So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
Again, putting her exactly in the center, or tossed between two sides, where she's both a Hulk, feeling all of the issues, all the conflicts internally that comes with being a Hulk, while at the same time being cognizant that she's struggling with these things. And this type of core theme is echoed throughout the rest of the plot. But while this is not only an internal struggle, it is also an external one, in which multiple different sides or different angles of who she is defined by others, by the perception that they force upon her. Even her name itself was something that she did not give herself. So we see how this external pressure forces her to choose to only present a certain side that the public or those who are watching her would prefer to see. So another great example of this is when we see her being hired.
We hired her.
This way, please. We are the first top-tier law firm to launch an entire division dedicated to superhuman law.
God, is this why they hired me? Okay, this sucks. I am totally qualified, but now everyone around here is always going to think this is the only reason I got the job. It's so unfair.
Now she's hired in this affirmative action way that forces her into the narrow role of expecting to only present as She-Hulk and not Jennifer, whereas originally she had wanted to be fully Jennifer and work as a lawyer trying cases as Jennifer solely, letting the alter ego of She-Hulk basically be cast aside and not used at all. So that being said, what are the core themes of She-Hulk? The core themes are one of internal integration, the struggle to bring together different parts of yourself to be a whole person, and not just rejecting one or the other, but trying to struggle to bring them together in a whole piece. But the second part is that external struggle with feeling defined by other people, by how they see you and how they want to see you, being forced by public perception, like how she's named by the press and not by her own accord, or simply by force of money itself, having to be hired with his job when she's out of work, only to present as She-Hulk when she wanted to be something more. So it's this external struggle of being defined by others and this internal struggle of trying to integrate both and not simply a shunning one part, but instead being a whole person. And what's more, being accepted for that wholeness. Despite there being a variety of villains in this show, the conflict rather seems to focus on self versus society. She-Hulk's struggle is more one of questioning, grappling with, and being forced to conform to other people's expectations. So while on paper, there may seem to be a villain of the week or several villains that come back to She-Hulk and present a threat later on, still the same core remains, and the reason I bring this up is in regards to intelligentsia. On paper, once again, not to overuse the term, but that seems to be the overarching villain, intelligentsia. However, this perfectly goes to what I'm talking about when it comes to self versus society. Intelligentsia on paper, and we'll get to the quality in the execution later on, but on paper does an excellent job of presenting us with a concrete foil to represent society or the expectations that certain people are judged by, in this case She-Hulk. However, not just the expectations overall, but in particular, they represent the negative side or the most bitter, resentful part of the expectations that are put on us and the judgment that we believe are right behind those expectations. That if we don't act a certain way, if we don't make certain choices, if we aren't a certain type of person, then the judgment, the hatred, the negativity will circulate around us like a dark cloud and basically infect other people with the same types of ideas, thereby turning our social circle or even those we've never met against us before we ever even have the opportunity to show them who we really are, or even a more positive aspect of the narrow version that they want to see. This core struggle is shown and mirrored on multiple different levels and different severity. So we have intelligentsia being the most negative aspect, but then we have other aspects that might be more humorous or more absurd. For instance, Titania. We see her ability to use social media in a way to stereotype herself as this narrow version, and we see her internal struggle in the wedding episode with that as well, wanting to shine, wanting to be the biggest, best version of herself, but in so doing, that is a very narrow aspect, a narrow angle of herself. And this further ingrains the cultural message, the societal message of people being judged, particularly women in this case, and superheroes judged in a narrow view, in a narrow way, only being able to be a certain type of person. And She-Hulk even feels that quite literally in the struggle for her trademark. We also see this, for example, when she's trying to work on Tinder matches. So she's on the off-brand Tinder trying to find matches, and she gets none as being Jennifer. However, but when she goes over to being She-Hulk, she gets a lot. This is one more piece of evidence that goes to show the cultural pressures She-Hulk is feeling, Jennifer is feeling, to be only a certain type of person, only a certain aspect of who she really is. However, this struggle or conflict, and the themes that surround it, ultimately come to a head in the climax, when the, we'll say, intimate tape is shown in front of everyone, and it is revealed that the man she thought might have been someone she could really open up to and show more of her full self, was only doing it for money, attention, and working for someone much more sinister with bad motives in mind. To go back and reference the themes we discussed earlier, this further cements the division between Jennifer and She-Hulk, in this case quite literally because she is not allowed any longer to turn into She-Hulk. Now we've come to the outcome, the moral, the final message. We come to the season finale, and we see that at first, it seems like it's going to be another Marvel, throw everything at the wall, and have the twist, Hulk comes back, a lot of extra things thrown in there. However, the difference in She-Hulk's case is that she forcibly chooses to break the fourth wall and take control of her own story. She confronts first the writers, and then eventually she goes straight to the top to Kevin. Rather than focus on the specifics of the climax, I think it's more important to look at a couple choices that the writers made in regards to how they ended it. First, they had her, of course, confront Kevin, go to the top. Another thing that they had happen, though, was they chose to have She-Hulk present as Jennifer. This is a very important part because it shows them, or in this case, and this part is a little fuzzy, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the quality, but she presents as Jennifer, showing that to the public and to the people watching, and also to the show itself, because she then goes back in as Jennifer, that she is not She-Hulk, that that's not really who she is, but the more totality, the larger version of who she is Jennifer. Another interesting choice that they made was that they brought back Matt Murdock, and while they did play it for laughs, the interesting part of bringing him back is that he was the only love interest Jennifer really had that saw her in more of a holistic manner. What do I mean by that? I mean, he saw her not just as She-Hulk, as someone who fought crime and was a big green monster, but instead also as a lawyer. They were able to quip back and forth, and that was a big part of the connection. Now, with this wrap-up of the series, what is the message? Well, due to some of the writing decisions, this question is not as easy as it should be. However, I believe the message ultimately is to actively resist the harmful perceptions that culture, that society, or that people in power place on us. And this show thus far has shown She-Hulk playing inside the system, reluctantly, even complaining at times, yet still going along with the role that she so resented. And while she broke the fourth wall, she's making fun of that, going back and forth, and yet still she continues onward in that same position. Yet the finale, by implication, seems to tell us to confront the world, confront the people that see you as being on the outside and force you into certain roles, who notice you but never really see you. And that it's not just enough to go along with it, but you have to actively go to them or confront the power structures, the system, whatever you want to call it, that's actively putting you in that position. That is the one that's responsible for why you're stuck in this pigeonholed, small, narrow box, this cage that you've been put inside. Furthermore, from there, you then have to go on to make your own story, to write your own narrative, to then become the person that you really believe yourself to be. It's not enough, just in this case, to go to Kevin Feige in this example and to tell him that you've been written wrong and that's not who you really are, but instead you must go the extra mile to write your own story, to present your own climax, your own narrative, your own wrap-up, and to be your own person. I hope this video does a good job of answering the question, what is the point of She-Hulk? In the next video, we're going to discuss the quality of She-Hulk. How good of a job does it do? How does it succeed and how does it fail when it comes to establishing and promoting its message? We'll be asking the question, does She-Hulk make sense? I'll see you then.